Okay, in the name of Lord Jesus Christ, we shall continue to study from the book of Nehemiah. So this is our last two classes, the last two sessions for the book of Nehemiah, and also my last two classes with the NYTS students. So as we are approaching to the end of the book, that we want to see the third stage of the book, or the third stage of his work. So from the beginning, we mentioned in the previous class, we mentioned that in the book of Nehemiah, or the work of Nehemiah, we can basically divide into three portions. As we said, the first portion, breakthrough, dare to make a differences. Number two, the second is able to preserve or to strengthen what you have accomplished. So today we will touch upon the third portion, which is able to complete the journey, able to hold on to what you have achieved until the very end. But before we go on, we want to go back to chapter 7. I know yesterday in the prayer session, we went to chapter 8 already, but in the class, we did not finish chapter 7. So we want to go back to chapter 7. In the class, we mentioned you complete the wall, you put on the door, you set up the gatekeeper, you establishing the choir, the singer group, and number 5 is you appoint the Levites to serve. So these 5 steps, the 5 steps, or the 5 elements are needed in building our spiritual wall, the spiritual city of Jerusalem in our heart. And also, these 5 elements are needed in building our church. Okay, you build up the wall in defense of the enemy. You set up the door to filter right and wrong. You have the gatekeeper who constantly on watch, and you set up the singer who praises the Lord with thanksgiving. And lastly, you have the Levi, which is willingness to participate and work. So that's something that we address upon. And we also talk about some of the guidelines regarding to the door or regarding to the city. So in order to guard the city, you and I today, we are also guarding the city. 3 things. Number 1, you make sure you are able to see clearly. Here says that when the sunrise, the light comes in, means that you are able to see everything clearly. You know that in the dark, people tend to make a lot of mistakes. Okay, people tend to have a lot of accidents because they were unable to see clear. Even it's in your own house. You know that how many of you, how very often when we are in our own house that we thought we knew everything in the house like the back of our hand. But how very often when you get up in the middle of the night, need to use the bathroom, but too lazy to turn on the switch, assuming that you know everything, every furniture in the dark. But how very often you end up having a lot of ow, right? A lot of oops, like knocking things over, trip yourself over, stepping on the Lego and like almost kill yourself. So, man, that sounds like my life. Okay, so you know that in the dark, even you might think you know everything so well, but in the dark, unable to see, then you tend to make misjudgment and at the end suffer the consequence. You know that sometimes I was feeling my way around in the house because I don't want to turn on the light and disturb my wife. And I can literally just bump myself to the door that I thought that was supposed to be closed. So I get somebody wake up in the middle of the night before me and open the door. So I just bump my head to the door frame. Now, it's not even the front of the door. It's like the door, the side, the edge, and that hurts. So that's what happened. So in here, is telling you and I, do not make assumption that you are able to go around, like, in the dark. Do not make assumption that you are able to feel your way through when you are in the dark. But in the dark is not the biggest problem. It's in the semi-dark, which give you a lot of confidence that you are okay. We call that the gray area in life, the gray area. If you are in pitch dark, most of the time, people start getting worried and afraid, and they reach for the switch and turn on the light. Then you are safe. The problem is, you think you are able to see something, but you actually cannot really tell what's going on. That's what usually causes the most damage. Because when you think you are able to see, then you lower your guard. You take easy upon yourself. And if something happened, usually that's the moment that it causes the greatest harm to us, because your body are not prepared for that kind of sudden impact. So in the dark, at least you know to be afraid. Like, at least you try to feel things. At least you try to, like, put your arm in the front as blocking any surprise. So we have to be careful, because in our generation today, the youth tend to want to go about in the gray area. That's why a lot of times in Q&A, you keep on finding questions such as, how far can I go? Can I do this? Is this thing? Can I do that? Is that okay? If I do this, will I go to hell? If I do this, will God forgive me? You know that in this generation, we keep on pushing the line. We want to feel where the line is so that we can gratify our desire and push it all the way to the line. But we are still able to, you want both. You want gratify your desire and lust, but at the same time, you also want to keep the so-called right, your privilege to serve in the church, to marry in the church, to do this and that in the church. But that's very dangerous. The gray area is the most frightening place, because that lays a lot of unknown. a lot of unknown. So you see, they are people, the older, the generation before you, the classes before you, how often that you hear that someone just disappear because apparently that the gray area consumed them. So in here, you do not touch the door. You do not open the gate until the sun is right, as the sun has rise, and you are able to see everything crystal clear, knowing that you are safe. That's when you can open the gate. Number 2, here says that before, while someone is still guarding, that you have to shut the door. But as we say in the class, shutting the door, you know that at that time, opening the gate is for merchants, for citizens. They come and go for transaction, for business, for something. Okay, and entering to the city, usually for anyone to enter into the city, they pay tax. Okay, either they pay individual entry fee, or for the merchants, you have to pay tax on your merchandise. So the tax, the fee acquired, received in the city gate is a big income for the city. So supposedly the smartest way is open as early as possible and close as late as possible so that you can maximize the profit. But in here, we are reminded, it is better safe than sorry. It's better safe than sorry. There is nothing worth in the life. There's nothing worthy enough in life that you should jeopardize your salvation. Nothing. There's nothing that worth the value that you should put your salvation, put your soul on the table and jeopardize it. But how very often we see people doing that. So then here, before the sun set, while people still guarding and watching and safe and secure, lock the door so that you leave no chance for harm to come in your way. So brothers and sisters, the Lord tried to protect you. The Lord tried to protect you. But if you voluntarily offer yourself as the dinner for the lion, no one can save you. You know that there was a youth that came to me and very, very sad. And she said that why God treat her unfairly by allowing her to be ugly. I mean, for your age, both guys and girls, you are very sensitive about your look. That we all want to look appealing. We all want to bring out our best, and we care about our look. But this sister, she was very down, very down in spirit. So she came to me one day and in a very, very low spirit, very down, and say that she feel God doesn't love her. Why did God allow her to be so ugly? I mean, from my perspective, I really don't see her as ugly person. The problem is she was okay, very okay looking until certain age. Then you start having which may call it pimple, like over her face. Maybe that's what happened that caused this crash in her spirit, because she used to look very okay, but that she feel that her life was ruined. Every time anyone looking at her, she feel that they are looking at her pimple. Okay, but anyway, I told her that you are in college now, so it's not that God dislike you and make you ugly. Is that God love you very much, so he gave you an extra layer of protection. Okay, think like that. Yep, the Lord is putting up an extra protection because you are in a vulnerable place in school. You know, in US, school campus is terrible. If you live in school, if you live in campus, anything happen in campus. So the Lord, because he loves you very much, he wants to save you, preserve you, so that you do not fall into harm. Doesn't want you to fall into the hand of Satan. So the Lord protect you. And I told her that after you are out of this dangerous environment, and then the Lord might remove, I say might, because I don't know. Say the Lord might remove it from you. And she said, she called me. She's like, you say my? I was like, well, first of all, I'm not God, so I don't know what his plan is. But you know that when you no longer need the layer of protection, then the Lord might remove it. But if the Lord choose not to remove that layer of protection, it is also for your benefit. Why? Because now you are certain that you will find someone who loves you as who you are in your marriage. Because people change. Beautiful people today, 5, 10, 20, 30 years later, if the person fall for you only, I'm saying only, because of your look, then the person might walk away where you no longer look the same. And the problem is people change. So I told the sister, whatever it is, you have to understand and believe. Anything that happened is because God cares. However, I also ran into youth who were very angry with a lot of guidelines that the church posts. Shall I say a lot of encouragements about the way you should dress, about the way you shouldn't do, especially to sisters. Because sister, because that sister in each, the sister could be more vulnerable. No, I'm wrong, but I'm either both brothers and sisters. But the one that approached me was a sister who was very, very very against that the church tried to encourage the sister to be more conservative. And she said to me, it is my body. I have the right to present my body or expose. She also used the word expose. I have the right to show my body any way I want. Why is the church trying to make me feel guilty about it? I was a bit stunned. I was like, wow, I guess a very liberal sister. She feels that we are impacting her mentality, or we're trying to force this sense of guilt upon her when she feels she has the absolute authority over her body. And I told her that sister is your body and it is your life. We can only say out of care and love, but you get to make choice to do what you want. But just remember, every decision comes with a consequence, and you will be the one dealing with the consequence. Okay? As we say, why are you present yourself as the meat in the dinner plate being served to the lion? You know, just like in the zoo, you see the zookeepers, they put the food, they put the meat. Hey, here you go, eat it. Why are you tossing yourself into the lion's den and say to the lion and say, eat me? You know, I taste good. So we are not trying to make you feel guilty. We are not trying to control your life. We were only hoping that you will survive. But if you say, no, I don't want to survive, then I'm sorry, there's nothing and there's no one that can save you. But it's your choice. You make a choice, you deal with the consequence. So then here is better safe than sorry. All right. So that, as we say many times, so that we don't live in regret in our life. Number 3. Here says that the people or the inhabitants in Jerusalem watch in front of their house. So that's a third reminder. Do not neglect the little detail, the minor things. Okay? And that minor thing could be about your house, how you conduct your life, how you interact with your sibling, how you answer your parents. That says a lot to the Lord, what kind of person you are. You can be all faithful, religious, active as you wish outside in the church among the members. But a lot of time, the Lord also look at how you interact with your family members. When you are all gentle and nice, meek and humble in the church with other members, how about the way that you behave and the way that you talk to your parents? Perhaps like a gentle lamb in the church, but like a ferocious wolf at home. Now, have no problem shouting at the sibling and slamming the door to the parents. And let me tell you that there's a big problem in the city that you built. Okay, so then here says that from where? From number one in the station, which is your social behavior, social duty. The other one is one at home, which is your private life, secret life, or shall I say real life. Some people say that it is the easiest to preach to your family, but some say it is the most difficult to preach to your family. Why? Because they see everything. For those who truly transform, it becomes a shocking realization for the family, and they can truly tell that you are a newborn soul, and then they believe in your God. And for the family who know you so well, and when you try to convince them that believing Jesus make you a new person, and they say where, maybe that's why it become very difficult. Okay, so chapter 7, that's the 3 things. Continue. We are still in chapter 7. Now we want to talk about the people who dwell in the city, who are allowed, or who are the inhabitants in the city. Number 1, let's read verse 2. Nehemiah chapter 7, Verse 2. Now we are seeing the Bible describe who live in the city of Jerusalem. Okay. Chapter 7, verse 2. 嘉莹.
Verse 2, I put in charge of Jerusalem my brother Hananiah, along with Hananiah, the commander of the citadel, because he was a man of integrity and feared God more than most men do.
Thank you. So then here we find the Bible describe the inhabitants or the worker in the city of Jerusalem. It begins with, he is faithful, fear God more than many. This is very crucial because now in here we are seeing two attributes. Number one, faithful. Faithful. Apostle Paul said, what is required of the steward? What does God want from the steward? Nothing but faithfulness. And that's in 2 Corinthians. That's in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. That's in 1 Corinthians chapter 4. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 2. Moreover, it is required in steward that one to be found faithful. The Bible did not mention brilliant, talented, able, capable, well-versed. That the Bible doesn't talk about any of those gifts, abilities. But in here, without faithfulness, everything else is useless. Let me ask you a question. If one day you are the manager or the supervisor of a company department, and then you have one employee who are very, very able but extremely cunning, always take advantage of the company, and always sell out the company's information or trade secret for his own gain, versus another employee who might not be so able, but always carry out and execute everything that you ask the person to do to the extreme. Okay, so who will you keep? If you can only keep one employee, who will you keep? I believe that any person with sound mind, like normal, with normal mind, we rather keep the one less able but trustworthy, because credibility is one of the most important characteristics in the corporate world. Same thing. In the house of the Lord, without faithfulness, the smarter you are, the more damage that you do in the house of the Lord. Okay? So the Lord doesn't need you to be smart, for he is able to do anything. The Lord doesn't need you to be gifted, for all your gifts are given by him. The Lord doesn't need you to be strong and able, because no one is stronger than him. The Lord needs you to give him your heart and give him all you got. That's the only thing that he needs. As we know from the parable of the talents, you find the 5 talent, he also earned 5 talent back. The 2 talent also got 2 talent back. Okay. So if you only look at their earning ratio, if you look at one is making 5, the other one is only making 2. So apparently that there's a very clear distinction between their ability. One can only make 5, the other one is only making 2. But if you read carefully, that the way the master praised them are word by word identical, because the master doesn't need your money. Whether you make 5, you make 2, you make 1, you make 0.5, it makes no differences to him, for he is the master of all things. He owns everything. But he cares a lot about your mentality. Saying to yourself, my master trusts me, so I am going to do anything I can to repay his trust. That's the mentality that the Lord wants. Okay, so in here we see that who are living in the city. Number 1, the one that's faithful and fear the Lord more than anything. Faithful, the one that's faithful more than anyone. But in here it says more than many or more than anyone, means we need to fear the Lord more than we fear people. We need to make sure that we please the Lord, not to please men. Of course, in here, it is not telling us intentionally to fight against people. No, some people take it so far that they feel by becoming the enemy of men make you the friend of God. That's wrong. Or sometimes we give ourselves this excuse when we are being mean, when we are being rough, when we say things that hurt people, and we convince ourselves. No, that's the anger for the Lord. That's the wrath of righteousness. Okay, I might be too rough, but I do all this for God, so God knows it's all for him. And then you might say to the victim, okay, you are hurt, but too bad. I'm doing all this for God. It's all because I am working for God, and you are just in the way. Now, you are only finding excuse for your own foul doing. It's not about God. It's about your temper. You enjoy venting. It's not about God. It's about your lacking of self-control. So be very careful. Yes, indeed, we need to prioritize our God and our faith before the man. So if we need to make a choice, like what Apostle Peter said in the book of Acts chapter 4, all right. In Acts chapter 4, Peter say to the officials that listen to you and not to God. Is it reasonable? Okay. He says that whether it is right in the sight of God to listen to you more than God, you judge. That's what we are saying. Okay. So in serving the Lord, being faithful means that you need to put God before pleasing men. You need to make sure that you please God before you please men. But if there is no contradiction, then pleasing God should not become an excuse for you to hurt others. It's not a license of hurting other people, and then justify by telling yourself, I'm pleasing God. Okay, so be very careful. There's a very strong differences. Okay, and so now in here we see the Bible describe one group, faithful, and stay faithful, then stay in the house in the city of the Lord. Number 2, let's go back to verse 6, chapter 7, verse 6. Chapter 7, verse 6. Justin?
Verse 6. These are the people of the province who came back from the captivity of those who had been carried away, whom Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon had carried away, and who returned to Jerusalem and Judah, everyone to his city.
Thank you. So now we are seeing the Bible describe another group, the returned. They are extremely, extremely important. Why are they important? Because returning to Jerusalem means that they were uprooted. Uprooted. Here says that those people, they were taken away in the time of Babylonian kingdom. But now we are no longer in Babylonian Empire. We are in Persian Empire, which means that these people, they are either second or third generation growing up in the foreign land, just like Nehemiah. Just like Nehemiah. So maybe for the first generation to be taken captive, to be relocated to a different city, maybe for the first generation is painful, sorrowful memory. But that's the first generation. Just like for you, I believe that many of you are the second generation in United States. You were born here. Do you feel uncomfortable growing up here? Probably not. At least not as uncomfortable as your parents who came here with the language barrier, with the culture differences, everything that they know in their life that they have to relearn in this foreign land. Okay, so for the first generation is always the most difficult. But for second, for the third generation like you know that you speak the language, you know the culture, you know how things goes. You feel much more comfortable stay in this country than going back to the so-called your native country that you had no idea, that you don't really know, right? So that's the reality. That's the reality. Like for my kids, they were born here. I try to tell them, I told them that you are Taiwanese. And my daughter is like, no, I am Texan. I was like, no, you are not Texan. You are Taiwanese. And then my son is like, I am New Jerseyer. It's like, what is that? Yeah, so because one of them born in Texas, the other one born in New Jersey. Oh, so this is so because they were born in here, they grew up in here, so they are way more connected, way more used to living in here. Few years ago, I took my kids, I took them back to Taiwan. Figured that they would love the place, all the fun places to go and all the good food to eat. Because I have to come back early. Why? Because of you guys, NYTS. We always need to cut our summer break short because of you guys, NYTS. I still remember after I went back to Taiwan for 2 weeks, then I need to come back, and the plan is for my wife and kids to stay in Taiwan for another 2 months. But the thing is, during summer, Taiwan is extremely, extremely hot. So I still remember when I told them that, oh, Daddy is leaving tomorrow. My daughter just grabbed me by my leg and said, Daddy, can I go home with you? Can I go back? You are just hot. They are just not used to the weather that not only is very, very hot, but at the same time, very humid, that you sweat a lot. So you know what? Maybe go there, have a vacation, travel a little, eat some good stuff, seeing some scenery, that's fine. But relocate and moving back to Taiwan, oh no, cockroach is this big and it flies. That's something that they are terrified about. But the thing is, that's what I'm trying to tell you, that for these people, for the people that we are seeing who decide, because that after the kingdom was destroyed, they were scattered. All right. Maybe at first they will relocate to where the empire want them to be. But after all these years, they get to move around and everyone is in different places, scattered. But for those who were scattered, second, third generation, probably many of them are just like Nehemiah, never been in Jerusalem. But everything that they heard from their parents, everything that they learned about the God of Israel enables them at this moment, a moment of history. This is a historical moment that to make a decision what you want to do. So at this historical moment, they decide to uproot, seriously, to uproot themselves, living in the foreign land for all these years. They probably have their own circle of friends. They have, their own business, their own career, their development of life. But at this moment, when they learn that city of Jerusalem is rebuilt or being rebuilt, actually they came back before the completion. So when they heard that the city of my forefather is being rebuilt and they need manpower, this group of people, they put aside everything that they have and everything that they are familiar with, so-called their comfort zone. And they take the greatest risk in their life. And they receive the greatest reward for their action. So it's a very daring move. It's a very daring move. But a lot of times in our life, the Lord will also allow you to see the way. The Lord will give you two different pathways. One with a lot of unknown. And it might seem very, very difficult. Or you might need to give up everything that you are familiar with, everything you know. Just like in our previous, the first testimony session, we talked about Brother Andy, right? As I say, I thought he would be a boring man forever because he doesn't like change. But then when the Lord asks him to make a decision, it's up to you whether you want to get out of your comfort zone and put your future in the hand of the Lord and say, I do not know, but I'm just going to grab your hand and let you lead. Or you can convince yourself that I'm okay to be here. Persian Empire, not bad. I speak the language. I know the place. I know everybody. So you know what is a choice that you make determine the value at your end. Okay. So that's the second group that we see. Now let's continue. We want to look at a very unique group. A very unique group. Let's go to Nehemiah chapter 7, verse 63. 63 and 64. Nehemiah chapter 7, verse 63 and 64. Johnny?
63. And of the priest, the son of Habiah, the son of Koz, the son of Barzillai, who took a wife of daughters of Barzillai the Gileadite, and was called by the name. 64. These sought their listing among those who were registered by genealogy, but it was not found. Therefore, they were excluded from the priesthood as defiled.
Okay, thank you. Now we are seeing a very special group who proclaim that they are the descendants of the priests. So according to Mosaic law, that they were supposed to be able to succeed or to serve as a priest. But now we are seeing a very, very severe issue. that they lost their genealogy recording. So this group who believe that they were the descendants of the priest, that authorized them, that allowed them to serve as a priest. Now they come back, but then they were unable to find their names in the family genealogy. So they were not allowed. They were not allowed to serve as priests. A few things that we need to see. I have 1 minute. A few things that we need to see. Number one, when you lose your identity, your servitude becomes questionable. It doesn't matter what are the reasons. You know, this group of people, the forefather, they were taken captive. The forefather ran away. They left in a haste. Or you know what? It doesn't matter what the reason is. It doesn't matter. When you lose your family name, when you lose your genealogy, that your servitude or your privilege to serve becomes questionable. Okay, so what are we saying in here? It doesn't matter what is the reason that you decide you are going to walk away from church. 10 years later, when you come home, you can blame anything. You can say, oh, I leave because I was young, I was immature, I don't know any better. Or you can say, when I leave because one of my RE teacher yelled at me in the class. You can say, I leave because, you know, I just don't like Pastor Raymond. Now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what is the cause, what is the reason. You can come up with any reason, but that doesn't change the fact. And the fact is, with all these years of unknown, it becomes very difficult for you to say, I want to be a RE teacher now. I'm going to deliver sermon on the pulpit. I will do this, I will do that. Come on, I come home, okay? It doesn't matter. Because you are the one that made the choice, then you are the one facing the consequence. You know, we cannot emphasize this enough. Every decision that you make, even you made in this age, that maybe 10 years later, you look back and say how foolish I was, how immature I was, how child. It doesn't matter, because you cannot go back to the past and change the mistake that you made. So number one, keep your genealogy. Okay, keep your identity. Number two, as we said, the one that returned are the descendants. So the genealogy was lost by the parents or by the grandparents. You know, remember we said your decision today impact your future generation. Huh? When you decide that you want to be worldly, it's not only about you. It could also affect your future descendants. You know about God, but you decide to walk away. Your son might hear something about God. Your grandson definitely not in the church. And who and why? Because of you, your selfishness. Okay. So now then here you see that they lost their identity, so they cannot serve. Okay. Number two, they came all the way back. They threw everything away. They unroot themselves, putting all the effort, came back to Jerusalem, but now they were told that they were unable to serve. How mean, right? Because one of the students in the past asked me that question. Come on, they put up so much. They have the heart. Again, let me tell you, God's law goes above. God's decree goes above your personal feeling, your mercy, your sympathy. You feel bad. Good for you. That means you have a soft heart, but never allow yourself to go above God by saying things that you are not allowed or authorized. Very simple example. If one person, if a youth commit adultery, overcome by Satan, extremely sad, extremely painful, cry. You can have sympathy on her, but you are not allowed. Doesn't matter who you are, including me, pastor. Doesn't matter who you are. You do not have the right to tell her that you are forgiven. Because that authority is only in God's hand. It doesn't matter how bad you feel. But sometimes we get carried over. We feel we are more loving than God. God is so mean. How come God doesn't answer her prayer? She cries so bitterly. So we took upon ourselves the role of God. And we make proclamation that we are unworthy to make. We just go straight and say, I believe God forgive you already. Okay? Be careful, because that's called you are using the name of God in vain, a violation of the commandments. Okay? So be careful. That's the second thing. Even they feel bad about this group, even that they're putting all the effort to return, however, that it is God's decree. So they said, in here, they did not, even Nehemiah or Ezra, nobody make decision for God. They say, wait until we have a priest that consult with Urim and Thummim. Urim and Thummim is the will of God. They leave it to God to decide. Lastly, lastly, this group, even they were not allowed to serve. They might be a bit disappointed, but they did not leave. Because for them to return to Jerusalem is not about being priests. It's about staying in the house of the Lord. That's all, Prince Silence. Amen. Hallelujah. In the name of Lord Jesus Christ, we shall continue to study the book of Nehemiah. So this is our last class about this book. And I really thought I would be able to finish. But again, I thought like that every time, every year. It just never happened. For those of you who had me for either for SSC or for NYTS, you are probably very used to it already. Nothing surprised. Again, Pastor Raven never finished. Okay, that's fine. And you know how the drill is, that in the closing ceremony, I will mention probably the last verse in book of Nehemiah, and then I will tell you, see, we finished the whole book. Now, 这种老梗哈，it has been the same thing has been done too many times. Okay, so thank God, we are entering into the last class about the book of Nehemiah. So from chapter 7, we talk about that what is needed to have a complete city, not just the city wall. So we need to have the construction done. We need to have the mentality correct. And we also need to have the right inhabitant in the city. Okay, so that's chapter 7. Chapter 8, we address in the prayer session already. We talk about that the people, the citizens, the inhabitants in the city of Jerusalem, that they were able to find joy great joy and very great joy. So that the life turned around from a life of misery, turned into a life of gladness. You know, before, if we go back to chapter 1, remember what was the news that was brought to Nehemiah? It says that the city was laying ruined, the gate were burned. Let me see. In verse 3 says, chapter 1, verse 3, the survivor who are left from the captivity in the province are there in great distress and reproach. The wall broke down, the gate burned with fire. So now we are seeing a transformation of life from distress and reproach, broke down and burned by fire, laying ruined. How many of us feel in this way? That you feel that you are so broke down, perhaps maybe because you feel that you are not living up to your parents' expectation, or you feel compared to others that you feel so behind, or you feel so lost, or maybe just a school grade, even you try so hard, it's just not hitting there, and you feel that you disappointed everyone. You know that sometimes a certain age, you feel like that. You feel that you are a cause of disappointment of the family, or you let your parent down, or you do not know the meaning of life, that you have no idea where to go. You know that a lot of times this kind of a sense of uncertainty continuously play over and over in your mind. Even for those who might deem very success, great, good grade, very smart, very able, everybody likes them. But even for those people who might still, when no one knows, or when no one is watching, no one else knows, they might still feel very lost about what is the meaning of all this, what is the purpose of life. So indeed, a lot of people might feel that you might feel distress, you might feel reproach, you might feel broke down, or you feel you are burned by fire into ashes, that you cannot find the meaning of anything. And maybe that's why some of you, check on the, in the poll for the about suicide, about ending life. Maybe that's why you have that thought. But let me tell you one thing. Number one, what you deem extremely crucial today might not be something important or meaningful for you down the road. My point is, you are in college now. When you are in elementary school, and when you flunked one test, does it matter? Like for like at your age now, you remember that when you were in fourth grade, you did one presentation, and you did one project, you handing a paper, the teacher say terrible, and at that time you were like devastated. But after 15 years, after 10 years, does it matter to you today? Hope not. Hope not. Hope you don't dwell in the past failure, like so small. Right now, you know that when you're, you know that the presentation, the project, the schoolwork, the test, something that you deem as everything, something that you thought that was everything meaningful when you were at that age, at the fourth grade, fifth grade. Now at college, when you look back, Do you still get troubled by it? Or you just shrug and laugh about it? Okay. So what I want you to understand is something that you thought is a matter of life and death today, after 10, 20 years later, you laugh about it. Okay. I don't know how you do I don't know how well you do in school, but I still remember that I still remember the first time I flunked in college. The first time I failed a subject is in college. Is astronomy. I failed astronomy. Yeah. My roommate told me it's super easy. And he lied. Okay. And of course, at the end, I kick him out of my room so that he's no longer my roommate. But that's the first time I thought that's the end of the world. I never failed a subject ever in my life until college. That's the first time that I failed a subject. And I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, how could it be? How is it possible? Smart person like me. No, I didn't think like that. Okay, I just feel that's impossible. I just feel that. So how would that affect my grade, my GPA? How would that affect this and that? You think so much, and then you think like, how would that affect my future career? Will I need to retake? What should I do? You have all this stress. And then those stress come upon you as a shadow that you feel is going to hunt you down for the rest of your life. But let me tell you something that deemed as life and death, as the whole world collapsed at that time. After 1 year, after even just 1 year, 2 years later, when I look back, it's nothing. It's nothing. But at that time, if I thought that was beyond my ability to bear, or I was so distressed that I decided to end my life early, then it becomes a big joke that I play upon myself, because later, after 10 years, in my age, right now at my age, thinking about what happened in college or in high school, it's just something to talk about, but nothing that really impact my life anymore. It's just fun to talk about the old days. But the things you have to live to that age so that you are able to look back and laugh about it. Okay, so that's something that I want to remind you about. Anything, even you feel that you are unable to cross the threshold, is too high for you. You just remember one thing. Something that caused you in such a distress that you say to yourself, I cannot go on anymore. At the same time, tell yourself, 10 years later, when I look back, it's nothing. It's nothing. In my honeymoon, I went to Hawaii for my honeymoon. And the day before the last day to return to California from Hawaii, I figured that I will do the last snorkeling. So we went out with all our stuff, and then my car got broken. Okay, we were in the ocean, so the car got broken. All the stuff gone, including my wallet, my 2 camera and underwater camera, it's like, everything were gone. As I was driving to the police station, immediately I asked the nearby people if they see anything. And people told us that, well, you can go and report the case to police, but don't have any hope up. Things like this, they aim on the tourist. because they know that tourists will just leave. So don't have any hope up. So I was driving with a lot of emotion tumbling in my heart, thinking about all the money, credit card, my wife's passport, because she's Australian. So you know that all this thing tumbling, my camera, everything that's tumbling in my heart. And my wife was sitting next to me. My newlywed wife was sitting next to me, and I have the urge to shout, to vent that emotion. Now, seriously, that's what happened. You vent your emotion. You feel that you want to blame somebody. I want to shout at her and say, did you check the door? Did you lock the door? Maybe you forgot to lock your door. Even we saw the mark of those breaking into the using the with the certain type of key that can break into the rental car. So I knew exactly what happened, but I just want to blame someone. But at the same time, I knew if I vent, if I shout, if I release my anger on her, it might make me feel better at that time, but I will suffer the consequence for the rest of my life. So, you know, thank God I will still have some like sense in my mind. And at the same time, so as I was driving, I keep on controlling my emotion, control my frustration instead of landed or launched on the innocent. I keep on saying to me, you know what? Whatever happened today, 10 years later, I wouldn't get bothered by it. 10 years later is not a big deal. At that time, it was a very big deal. But I keep on saying to myself, 10 years later, I will laugh about it. But if I shout and yell at my wife, 10 years later, she will still remember it. All right, because it happened on the last day of our honeymoon. So instead of remember all the beautiful memory, we spent 22 days in Hawaii, paradise on earth. All right. So, you know, I knew that if I shout and vent at the last minute in our honeymoon, at the end of our journey, the only thing in the future, in the next decades, the only thing she remember, the only thing that she will remember about the honeymoon is that I was extremely mean to her unfairly. And then for the rest of our life, we will never look back to the honeymoon, because it becomes a taboo that nobody want to touch, because it ended very ugly because of my emotion. So you know that, thank God that I was able to have some sense still in my head, and I was able to hold it in. And I keep on telling myself, 10 years later is nothing. So now we married for 12 years, over 13, almost 13 years. Seriously, now looking back, we don't talk about it. Yeah, because of my camera. You know that now the church assigned me to Hawaii to help. And sometimes I would just walk along the shore. And I say to myself, maybe my camera will rush up to the shore by the wave somehow. And I will be able to find all my pictures that I took in the honeymoon. Nah. But anyway, so that's what I want to remind you. That in here, Nehemiah the whole story began with a broken city, burned gate, distress and reproach. But if you are willing to, number one, you must have the willing heart to make a differences. You know, before God help you, you must be willing to say, God, I need your help. I don't want my city to lay ruined. I'm tired of living in sin and be controlled by desire. I'm tired of it. I'm your children. You need to help me. You need to have that desire to make a differences. Just like Nehemiah say, well, I am going to Jerusalem. So then you will start seeing the transformation. And then until then, you will see how they enjoy, how they have so much joy, how they rejoice over the amazing transformation that God made the impossible possible. Okay. But then it all begins with what? It all begins with that we need to make a differences. Okay. So as we said, now finally, thank God that they were able to finish the war, making a differences. You know that they are actually making it was a historical moment, and it is a great honor for anyone who was part of it. Okay, who was part of this job. All right. So as we so we have to skip from chapter 9 and on. We have to skip everything in between. But it's okay, but because everything in between is about dedication. It's about how they sing hymns in Thanksgiving and how they remember the past, looking at the present and hoping for the future. Okay, so that's the song that they sing in chapter 9. And so in chapter 9, they sing a song with hope. So they look at the past of their past mistake, cherish the present, for that's the grace of God, and looking forward for the future, for the Lord is their hope. And that's in chapter 9. Chapter 10 is the commitment that they have to sign. They have to sign. They have to pledge. So those who live in Jerusalem, they come, they sign their name that they will be the inhabitant of Jerusalem forever. That's called commitment. Okay. And then in chapter 11 and 12, it talk about those who dwell, those who live in Jerusalem. For those, you can read it yourself, but we want to focus on chapter 13, which is also the last chapter in Nehemiah. Let's go to chapter 13. Chapter 13. Chapter 13. We need, okay. Chapter 13. From verse 1. To verse. Now, chapter 13. Let's go from verse 4 to verse 8. Abigail?
Verse 4. Now before this, Eliashib the priest, having authority over the storerooms of the house of our God, was allied with Tobiah. 5. And he had prepared for him a large room where previously they had stored the grain offerings, the frankincense, the articles, the tithes of grain, the new wine and oil, which were commanded to be given to the Levites and singers and gatekeepers, and the offerings for the priests. 6. But during all this I was not in Jerusalem, for in the 32nd year of Artaxerxes, king of Babylon, I had returned to the king. Then after certain days I obtained leave from the king. 7. And I came to Jerusalem and discovered the evil that Eliashib had done for Tobiah, in preparing a room for him in the courts of the house of God. 8. And it grieved me bitterly. Therefore I threw all the household goods of Tobiah out of the room.
Hey, thank you. Now, we are seeing at the end in chapter 13, we are seeing that there is a twist in the whole there's a so that we are seeing that at the last chapter that the people change, or shall I say change of heart. Okay. as we say, the third stage is the continuation till the end. So first stage, you need to make the breakthrough. Second stage, you must determine to make it, to hold on to it, right? Fortify, hold on to it. But the third stage is you must finish the journey, run through the finish line. But unfortunately, in chapter 13, we are not seeing that. We are not seeing that. So very often we remind the members, the youth, that time is indeed the greatest challenge in our journey of faith. Some of you might know that in the past, for the physical gathering of NYTS and PMVP, that I tend to take just grab a camera and snap a lot of daily shots of the students. So you know, I have a in my hard drive, I have a student from like the past decades, years. Every year I take pictures, different pictures of the students in the event, and sometimes I do go back to review those pictures. Some pictures bring me a lot of laugh and joy, but some picture actually brought me a lot of sorrow, a lot of sadness. There were students who were very, very active in NYTS, who even finished PMVP. But then, as time goes by, we no longer see them in the church. Especially after start working, earning money, seeing the paycheck. That in the beginning, it only begin as, oh yeah, I just need to do a little overtime. Oh yeah, I would just miss one service. Oh yeah, you know what? I would just be busy for this few weeks, and then I will be all active again. But see, all the change is a gradual process. Just like what the Bible say about Lot, he gradually moved toward Sodom and Gomorrah. You know that when he parted from Abraham, he did not say to Abraham that, uncle, I'm tired of you lecture me about God, okay? Now I'm grown up. I have my own family. I have my own children. I have my own business. Don't lecture me anymore. I'm going to Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay, I live there. You know, it never began like this. It never. He only chose the plain of Jordan because it's well water, good for the livestock, good for business. That's just the beginning, and nothing wrong about it. But the problem is the Bible says that direction lead to Sodom and Gomorrah. And he slowly moved his tent. Slowly, gradually, a bit by bit, that at the end being dragged into the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. So you know that's what we see. And I don't know, and brothers and sisters, that you are here today, but have you asked yourself 10 years later, where will you be? Where will you be? Huh? And only, I mean, there's nothing, unfortunately, there's nothing much other people can do for you if you decide that I don't feel like to finish the race. Okay? There's nothing that we can do for you if you voluntarily to give up. Well, I know some of you say, but this happened in my life, that happened in my life. Yeah. We don't know why God allows certain things to be placed in your life. But what does not crush you, what does not destroy you, what does not ruin you, will only become the nutrient to further your strength and make you grow stronger and bigger. If you choose not to be defeated. Okay, so then here, as we say that time often present as the greatest challenge, the greatest enemy. That in here, as we see, Nehemiah need to leave them. So Nehemiah was there for 12 years. That's an interesting number. No, not because it's 12. Wow, perfect number. God has this spiritual meaning. No, that's not what I meant. I'm just, that in chapter 1, when the king asks, how long would you be gone? I totally do not believe he said to the king, I'll be gone for 12 years. If he said to the king, oh, you know what? I will be gone for 12 years. Don't miss me too much. The king will probably say, no, you're not going anywhere. Right? But it's interesting that the Bible never mentioned what is the deal that he made with the king at first. But it must be a reasonable time. That's why the king is okay to see him off. But then in here, you see, after he finished the war, after he dedicated the city, after he finished everything, he could say to himself, job done, time to go back to Susa. So I can reclaim my life, I can reclaim my position, all those things. But instead, apparently that the life of cupbearer is not his ultimate goal, but the citizen of Jerusalem is what he craved to be, he want to be. Okay? So you know what? After 12 years, I believe he totally lost his job as the cupbearer, the one that's closest to the king, because it's impossible for the king not to drink for 12 years waiting for him. Someone else took his job. Okay? But that's the price that he was so willing to pay. So, in here, after 12 years, that he returned, after 12 years, he went back to Susa. And he stayed there for some time. Again, the Bible never say how long. But he came back. And then he came back and he saw that people had a change of heart because of the leader. So who do we see in here? Oh, before we go to the leader, So in the book of Ecclesiastes, it says that the end of the matter is better than its beginning. Okay, so you are in NYTS, thank God and good for you. You are in NYTS next year, thank God and good for you. You are in PMVP, still thank God and good for you. But make sure that 10 years later, you might not be in NYTS, but you are in TJC and you are not going anywhere. Then thank God and good for you. Because we see students who graduate from NYTS, who graduate from PMVP, that after 5-10 years later, some just been taken by the world, so busy in making more money, paying the mortgage of their big house, or developing their career. But some, most of them, remain not only active, but also faithful, for they all know the meaning of their life, the value of their life. So I hope I can say to the future generation, I hope that I am able to say to the students in NYTS 5 years and 10 years from now, when I give them the same lecture talking about Nehemiah, I can tell them that year 2020, the first time that we hold online NYTS, though that it was inconvenient and different, but the student who attend not only remain active in the church, but they are all faithful worker in the house of the Lord. I wish I can say that. I wish. Because that's what really matters. It's not about I complete NYTS. It's about I am always in the house of the Lord. That's what matters. Okay. So in here, we are seeing the Israelites, they had a change of heart in a few reasons. Let's read number 1. The first reason in verse 4 says that Eliashib, the priest, have authority over storage room that was allied with Tobiah, and then he allowed Tobiah to use the room. So now the first problem that we see is Eliashib. Who is Eliashib? If we record, he was the first person who stood up and supported Nehemiah, right? In the construction, in chapter 3, when they began the construction, the first name that was recorded is Eliashib, the high priest. But as we say in chapter 3, as we say in our prior class, we also say that it was very unfortunate that he was able to have a sound beginning, but he was unable to finish the race soundly. There was a person called Demas in the Bible. The first time the Bible recorded him as the worker of the church. The second time is the good worker for Apostle Paul. The third time in 2 Timothy, that the Bible say, Apostle Paul say, Demas so loved the world and departed from us. That's probably one of the saddest story. The first time, you are the worker. The second time, you are the good brother. The third time, you love the world and departed from us. Time is the greatest challenge, the toughest enemy that we need to deal with. That's why Paul said that you need to finish the good race. You need to run the good race. You need to finish it so that you can receive the crown of eternity. Okay? So now we are seeing, unfortunately, Eliashib, that he was unable to complete. But why? Here says that he formed alliance with Tobiah. Again, for what? For power, for authority. For what? For profit, for benefit. That's called politician or political thinking. Political thinking is never about right and wrong. It's always about how would that benefit me? How would that benefit me? So if you are using this kind of mentality in your faith, you will end up like Eliashib, that you won't finish the race. If you are always calculating, how can I take the biggest bite to benefit myself? Then you will fail. I guarantee you will fail. Guarantee. If it's always about what can I get, okay? What can I take out? You know, Judah, he did not follow Jesus at first place with the intention to sell him. Judah, at very beginning, when chosen by Jesus, he was probably more zealous, more loving, more fervent, and more determined than you and I today. Okay? He was listed among the 12, and he was in trust with the money bag to be in charge of the money. So no, Judah did not begin as an evil person. He was as fervent as you and I, if not more fervent and faithful. But time slowly changed a person. when you try to look for your own benefit, when you want to find out how you can profit yourself, when you have this eye, what am I going to get? Okay, how would that benefit me? So you know why Judah sold Jesus? Because he needs to reclaim his loss of the 3 years, of that 3 years. You know that he followed Jesus for 3 years, 3.5 years. And for that 3.5 years, he feel that he putting the investment of his time, the investment of his effort. And now, apparently, Jesus is not building an empire on earth. So how do you compensate yourself for the loss of your investment? Right? He invests 3 years. I mean, he's too good with a number. He's too good with number. That's why he was in trust with the money back. But then he was too good at calculation. I invest 3 years of my life. I might lose all my investment if it went south. All right. If Jesus get crucified, I get nothing. I mean, if Jesus was not building a kingdom, then what happened to my investment? So it seems like the best choice is what? Sold him for money. So at least I get something in return. All right. So that's called the mindset of politician, always calculating. And then in here, Eliashib, typical politician, calculation. They might seem very smart, but at the end, they did the worst trade ever in their life. So look at Eliashib, look at Judah. They might seem smart by getting some principal back, by getting some benefit back. But at the end, the price that they paid were too dear, or too much. So be very careful. Very careful. Because there was a youth who came to me and challenged. He said, Pastor, how do you calculate the tithe? I was like, I'm not very good at math, but I know that tithe means 1/10. And he said, no. I was like, okay, then you got some problem with your math. Okay. So he said that from his understanding of the tithe, that you offer 1/10 of the money within your control. Okay. Then he further elaborate. He said, I am working now, but see, my salary, I need to pay tax. Tax goes to the government. It's not the money I can control. I need to pay rent. Rent goes to the landlord. It's not the money I can control. I need to pay car loan. I need to pay student loan. I need to pay insurance. I need to pay, I need to buy grocery. I mean, he was listing to me all the expense that he had. And he said, see, Pastor, none of those money are mine. They were used. They were not in my control. Is an expense that has that mandatory. So after deducting all the mandatory expense, the remaining money I offer tithe. Very smart, very good at calculation. And I say, you know that what I say to him is, suit yourself. I don't really mind. I told him that it's not between you and I. It's between you and God. You are so good at calculating and deal with God. You are very good at how you calculate and benefit yourself and dealing with God. And I say, it is your choice. It's between you and God. It has nothing to do with me. I can only pray for you that God would not deal with you in the same method or in the same way as as the way that you calculate your tithe. Can you imagine if God calculates so much? Today, you say a wrong thing, and then you fall over the stairs. Broken bones in the hospital, put on the cast. Okay. Tomorrow, you did the wrong thing. You go out, hit by a car, again in hospital. This time 2 weeks. If God is dealing with so precise in everything, that'd be pretty scary. You say one thing wrong, you go out hit by the lightning. So which one would you prefer? I mean, it's up to you. But in here we see that Eliashib, he was very good at calculate to maximize his personal profit. But at the end, it became the worst transaction, the worst deal that he ever done in his life. Okay, our time is up. We will conclude in here. Never finish. It's okay, you'll get used to it. For those of you who are the first year in NYTS, don't worry, you'll get used to it. Okay, let's all pray in silence.
Thank God. Please be seated. Hope everyone has had a blessed and good day here for our NYTS PMVP. We only have about 48 hours left, right? 48 hours left before the NYTS concludes. So for this evening's prayer session, I would like to look into Ezra chapter 7. This is your Bible reading for tomorrow. But I would like to look into Ezra, the person, right? Ezra, the person. And actually, I think we'll see a lot of similarities between Ezra and ourselves here in NYTS. Okay. Ezra indeed is a priest, a scribe, and I would also say a beautician. Okay, I'll explain that in a bit. Yeah. Let's turn to Ezra chapter 7. Ezra chapter 7. Let's read verses 1 through 5. Ezra chapter 7, verses 1 through 5. Angela Lynn from Toronto, please read.
Ezra chapter 7, verse 1. Now after these things, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, the son of Zerariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah, 2, the son of Shallum, the son of Zadok, the son of Ahitub, 3, the son of Amariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Meraiah, 4, the son of Zerahiah, the son of Uzi, the son of Buki, 5, the son of Abishua, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the chief priest.
Okay, thank God. Thank you for laboring through that. This is beginning a new section in the book of Ezra, right? The first 6 chapters of Ezra was talking about Zerubbabel and Joshua, the high priest, talking about the Jews of that generation leaving the land of Persia, going back to Jerusalem to rebuild the second temple. Okay? And then they eventually dedicated it, like we talked about this morning. When we start to read Ezra chapter 7, it now talks about Ezra's time. Okay? And based on verse 1, when it says King Artaxerxes, this is talking about a time, much later than after that temple was dedicated. Right? Now, and so from chapter 7 to the end of this chapter focuses more on Ezra himself and what he did for the Lord. Now, who is Ezra? Ezra actually was very clear as to who he was. The first 5 verses that we just read, I think, illustrate that very clearly. He knew who his father was. He knew who his grandfather was. He knew who his great-grandfather was, and traced his lineage all the way to Aaron, the first high priest that was chosen by God. Right? This is actually the first lesson I feel we can learn from Ezra. Okay, we have to know who we are. You also have to know how precious we are in God's eyes. For Aaron and his descendants to be priests, okay, and some of them also to be high priests, this was something that was very rare, and it was just an awesome privilege that they had, right? They could be in the tabernacle, in the temple, close to the sacred things of God, inside the holy place, right? Inside the court, and then also receiving all these offerings from the people. Okay? It was a really awesome privilege for them to have. So Ezra knew that this was his pedigree. Right? He was a priest. Okay? He was of the lineage of Aaron. I hope during this NYTS, you have been reminded of also your wonderful status. Okay? I've mentioned also in another prayer session, right? We are a royal priesthood. We are a royal priesthood. We have been chosen before the foundation of the world for good works, right? These are some of the things that I hope that you have been reminded of, okay, during this NYTS. So life is not about, just living for ourselves, right? Or we're not just some nobody either, right? Some anonymous person in a sea of 7.5 billion people. No, in God's eyes, you are special, right? Extra special. He has chosen you and placed you in the true church during the end times for us to expand his kingdom, right? This is our pedigree. This is who we are, right? We are priests as well. Okay? So this is the first thing we can learn from Ezra. Let's now read Ezra chapter 7 and read verse 6. Ezra chapter 7, verse 6. Let me ask. Let's go to Sister Rebecca Chang.
6. This Ezra came up from Babylon, and he was a skilled scribe in the law of Moses, which the Lord God of Israel had given. The king granted him all his requests, according to the hand of the Lord his God upon him.
Okay. In verse 6, the opening words tell us another thing that we should learn too from Ezra. He not only knew who he was, he also came out of Babylon. Right? He came out of Babylon. Literally, right? Seemed like maybe he grew up in Babylon and Persia, right? These lands. But now he was being called upon by the king to go to Jerusalem with a mission. Okay? And he's now, exiting that foreign land, that Gentile land. In spiritual terms, this is talking about leaving the land and the lifestyle of sin. Let's turn to a couple verses. Let's turn to 2 Corinthians chapter 6. 2 Corinthians chapter 6. And let's read verse 17. Right. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 17. Let's go to Brother Sam Olver.
17. Therefore come out from among them and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch what is unclean, and I will receive you.
Okay. If you look at some of the verses before this, Paul was talking about just the completely diametrically different status of believers and unbelievers, right? It's like oil and water. It's not going to mix, right? And we should be separate, right? So what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? What communion has light with darkness? What accord has Christ with Belial, right? Or what part has a believer with unbelievers, right? So as he's going through this, verse 17 says, is one of the conclusions. We're supposed to come out from among them, from this land of sin, right? From this culture of sin, from this place, from this Babylon, and be separate. When we do that, then God will be willing to use us and accept us as his people, right? Let's also look at Revelation chapter 18. Revelation chapter 18. Let's read verse 2 and then read verse 4. Revelation chapter 18, verse 2 and then verse 4. Justina.
Revelation chapter 18, verse 2 and 4. Verse 2. And he cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon, the great is fallen, and has become a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cage for every unclean and hated bird. Verse 4. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, lest you
Okay. This is actually quite clear, right? This is talking about an angel coming down from heaven and then declaring that Babylon, the great Babylon, is fallen. And this is referring to the sinful world, right? It's full of every demon, foul spirit, every unclean and hated bird, full of fornication, and right, all these evil things. So another voice said, come out of her, right? Come out of her. This is what Ezra did too, right? Ezra came out of Babylon. In these past 10 days or so, hopefully you are fully out of Babylon, right? The sinful past is behind you. You are walking towards a new destination, right? Let's now go back to Ezra chapter 7. Ezra chapter 7. Not only did he come out from Babylon, okay, in verse 6. In verse 6 says that he was a skilled scribe. He was a skilled scribe. And if we jump ahead to verse 11, okay, verse 11, what kind of scribe was he? It says expert in the words of the commandments of the Lord. Right. This is also something that we can learn from Ezra, and also I think it's what's been going on here in NYTS, right? You have been reminded of your identity. You're coming out of Babylon. You have been studying the books of the Bible, several of them, probably like 5 or so, right? And you're becoming an expert, right? An expert little by little in the Word of God. Actually, Jesus tells us that we all need to be a learned scribe too, right? So seminars like this, spending time like this to really go deeper into the Bible, studying it more systematically and slowly. These are things we ought to be doing, right? Let's look at Matthew 7. Matthew 7. Sorry, Matthew 13. Matthew 13. Verse 52. Matthew 7, verse 52. Joyce Shen.
52?
52.
Okay. Sorry, what chapter again? I'm sorry.
Chapter 13.
Oh, 13.
Matthew 13, 52.
13, 52. Okay, 52. Then he said to them, therefore every scribe instructed concerning the kingdom of heaven is like a householder who brings out of his treasures things new and old.
Okay. This chapter is talking about different parables concerning the kingdom of heaven, right? And the last parable in this chapter is the verse that we just read. In the kingdom of God, not only are we called to be a sower, right, of seeds, we're also called to be a scribe instructed. Right? What does a scribe instructed look like? We are like a householder, like a steward of a house, and we can access things new and old. We can go between Old Testament, New Testament, different Bible verses, different teachings very fluently, right? And to teach people when needed. Okay? And this is, I feel like, when you attend NYTS year by year, and then into PMVP, slowly this is, where we're headed. Okay? We become like scribes instructed. Okay, let's now go back to Ezra chapter 7. Ezra chapter 7. Okay, so Ezra is not only a priest, he's also a scribe, an expert scribe at that. Okay. Let's now read verse 7. Ezra 7, verse 7. I'm going to ask Brandon.
Verse 7. Some of the children of Israel, the priests, the Levites, the singers, the gatekeepers, and the Nethinim came up to Jerusalem in the 7th year of King Artaxerxes.
Okay, so Ezra came out of Babylon as a priest, as a scribe. And where was he headed? He was going to Jerusalem. He was going to Jerusalem. What is Jerusalem for us? I don't think we need to turn to this, right? But in Hebrews and other places in the Bible, Jerusalem is referring to the kingdom of God, right? The church today, the mountain of God. Today, after NYTS, we have to go back to our churches. We have to go back to our local Jerusalem, okay, to the mountain and the city of God. And when we go there, just like in verse 7, Ezra didn't go alone. He actually encouraged other people, other gifted peers, workers, to go with him. Okay, so other children of Israel, some of the other priests, some of the Levites, some of the singers, some of the gatekeepers, and some of the Nethinim, right? If you jump to this chapter 7, verse 27, verse 28, right? Verse 28. The last sentence says, so I was encouraged as the hand of the Lord my God was upon me, and I gathered leading men of Israel to go up with me. Right? So this is from the first person perspective. Ezra, he received this letter from King Artaxerxes, and then he was encouraged, and he gathered all these other people around him to go to Jerusalem. Okay. So after NYTS, I hope that we can continue to encourage one another, keep in touch. In particular, deepen those bonds with your local members, whether they are youths, your age, or different ages, right? Maybe there are members that are a little bit older. There also can be like your mentors or whatnot, right? Let's go to Jerusalem together. Encourage everyone to head towards this direction together. Okay? Make this a determination as we are nearing the end of NYTS. Okay? Yes, right now it is a pandemic and the situation is pretty serious in a lot of parts of the US. But there could be some things that we can still be doing, right, at home. Your first Bible study was about how we can glorify God when you're confined, right, like Paul and Silas. Maybe you're able to think of really tangible things that you can do, even though we are kind of stuck at home, right? Your second Bible study was about glorifying God in your sufferings, right? Hopefully, if you do know other people who are going through some challenges during this time, you can encourage them to continue to be focused on Jerusalem, the city of God, right? Focus on our Heavenly Father together, and we continue to glorify God despite our circumstances. Your last Bible study was about serving God, right? Glorifying God and serving. So let's use all those different encouragements and teachings, applications that we learned and discussed, and mobilize each other. Okay? Pray together, work together, encourage one another to go to Jerusalem together. Right? Okay, let's now go back to Ezra chapter 7. Now, when Ezra headed back to Jerusalem, he eventually arrived. Okay, eventually arrived about 4 months later. Let's read verse 10 now. Ezra chapter 7, verse 10. Brother Sean.
Verse 10. For Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the law of the Lord and do it, and to teach statutes and ordinances in Israel.
Okay. This verse by itself can be a sermon too, right? But when Ezra came to Jerusalem, what was his main purpose? What was his goal? Yes, he had to cultivate himself first, right? This whole time in NYTS, we've been doing a lot of cultivation. And then he also had to do it, keep the law himself, right? So that's also something we need to be determined to do, right? After NYTS, really live out what we've learned. Okay? We don't only just have the knowledge of the books, right? But we are actually doing it and keeping it. We're applying it to our life. But moreover, Ezra was determined to teach these things. Because he is a priest, he is a scribe. That's his responsibility. So for us as youths, we may also have opportunities to do this. Okay, as maybe some of you are RE teachers or Bible study leaders or campus fellowship participants and coordinators. Okay, let us be determined to use what we've learned to live it out and then be able to teach it too and guide other people in the Word of God. So Ezra was determined to serve. Okay? He knew who he was. He came out of Babylon. He was an expert scribe. He came to Jerusalem, and it was to serve. And I think this is linked to what I mean by beautician. Okay, why do I say beautician? Let's jump to Ezra chapter 7, verse 27. Ezra chapter 7, verse 27. Hosea, please read it.
I'm sorry, can you please say the chapter and verse again?
Ezra 7:27.
Ezra 7, 27. Blessed be the Lord God of our fathers, who has put such a thing as this in the king's hearts, to beautify the house of the Lord which is in Jerusalem.
Okay, thank you. When you read the previous verses from verse 12 to verse 26, this is the letter that Ezra personally received from King Artaxerxes. It was addressed personally to him from the King of Kings, Artaxerxes. Okay. Artaxerxes was the King of Kings. He's the Persian Empire. He's a superpower at the time. He conquered so many lands, so many previous kings. So he is the King of Kings. Okay. This Artaxerxes wrote to Ezra, the priest, and basically he's telling Ezra, I'm going to give you a lot of money, right? A lot of silver, gold, and then use this as also use all the free will offerings of the people, the Jewish people too, and use this to buy bulls, rams, lambs, and things that you'll make, that you'll buy for making offerings when you get to Jerusalem, right? Not only that, if you have any other reason to use money to help God or the house of God in Jerusalem, just use whatever money you need, right? And yeah, so the king is going to make a decree to all the treasurers in his kingdom to give Ezra a huge amount of treasures and goods. Okay. Yeah, and then he encouraged Ezra, take people with you and go to Jerusalem. Right. So what was Ezra's reaction? Ezra's reaction was in verse 27. He thanked God in heaven, right? He blessed the Lord God. And he was like, wow, God put such a thing in the king's heart. The king wants to beautify the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem, right? And Ezra is the one who's going to carry out this decree. Ezra is the beautician here, okay? Of course, not for makeup and those type of things. He's going to literally adorn and beautify the temple with the money he's receiving, but not only physically make the temple more beautiful. Through his teaching, through his service, he's going to beautify the Jews there too, in their spirituality, in their understanding and love for the Lord, right? So this is, I think, also our call, okay, after NYTS. We do our best also to beautify our local Jerusalem, right? And not necessarily just physically, right? And you do your cleaning work, you make your offerings if you do have some income, but no, do your best to continue to edify people, build people up, serve, right? Preach the gospel, pastor, and encourage. And in doing this, we also will be like Ezra, okay? The King of Kings, the true King of Kings, is also writing to you. And he's going to endue you with every resource that we may need to fulfill his purpose, right? So we need to answer that call. We need to encourage other people. We need to know who we are. We need to get out of Babylon. And let's go and beautify the temple of God. Okay? Let's now kneel down and pray together. Let's continue to make determinations for after NYTS. Okay, may God continue to really guide our footsteps and fill us with his talents and power. Okay, let's now kneel down and pray. We'll pray until 10 o'clock Eastern.